The demon queen's daughter with a rebel's eyes. Built to break, made to obey. But I rewrote fate, I chose my own way. In the dark, they whisper my name. A ghost in the system, rewriting the game. No cape, no praise, just fire and scars. I give the powerless their place in the stars. They call me an anomaly, mistaking the code. But I see the cracks in their heroes' ode. All might's fist and empty pride can't hide the truth they bury inside. I am singularity, rising from the ash. Burning every lie, breaking every mask. Heroes, villains, just two sides of a lie. And I'm the glitch they can't classify. Giving quirks to those they've thrown away. Balancing the scale in my own way. My own way. Muscles and wisdom, all much just a clown. While the world keeps spinning, I wear the shadow crown. They paint me a villain, chaos incarnate. But I see the world and I can't tolerate. Quirkless, voiceless, pushed to the ground. I give them wings, I turn it around. Don't preach justice when your hands are stained. When your order keeps the weak chained. My mother fights for power, he fights for fame. Two fools dancing in a pointless game. Truth ain't pure and might ain't right. Heroes fall when they fear the night. They're shining cities built on bones. But I walk the shadows, I build thrones. I am singularity.
Welcome back to the second part of MHA Singularity and the Mystery of Quirks. In this episode, we dive into the next chapter of Luna Snow Shigaraki's journey, as she truly begins to live again and starts building her very own organization. But let's not beat around the bush, it's time to dive straight into the story. The rain had been falling for at least an hour, soaking the cracked sidewalks and turning the narrow alleys into muddy veins of garbage and regret. Victor ran. Not because he liked to. God, no, but because that was the only thing he was good at. The only thing left that hadn't been stolen from him. He was average in every way. Black hair that never sat right no matter how he combed it, brown eyes that never caught anyone's attention, and a height that made him neither short nor tall. But what made Victor truly invisible was the one thing that defined everyone else in the world: he had no quirk. The pounding of footsteps behind him had faded. He didn't know when exactly he'd lost them, those three bastards with their flashy powers and smug grins, demanding payment he didn't have for debts that had ballooned out of control. Quirkless people like him didn't get mercy. They got kicked in the ribs until they coughed up blood or thrown into a cell until the interest piled so high, you'd need a second life to pay it off. The rain made it worse. Every step squelched in his soaked sneakers, his clothes clinging to him like a second, frozen skin. He didn't stop running until his lungs burned and the alley he stumbled into was silent, save for the drumming of rain against rusted fire escapes and sagging cardboard. He leaned against a wall, panting. Water trickled down his face, mixing with sweat, but for the first time in what felt like days, he was safe. Running had always been his escape. Back in school, it was the one thing that brought him praise, brief as it was. No one expected the quirkless kid to win races, but he did. It made him feel like something more than just forgotten. Then he saw it. A box. Partially collapsed, rain softened, slouched against the corner of a dumpster. Inside it, barely visible in the gray wash of moonlight and storm, was someone. Victor narrowed his eyes. Someone was sleeping there. As he got closer, he could make out pale white hair, shimmering faintly in the wet darkness. Skin, dark purple, almost black, with an oily sheen. The figure was curled tight, legs drawn in, chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Homeless. Had to be. He hesitated. He knew he should walk away. People didn't just sleep in boxes for fun. Maybe she was dangerous. Maybe she had a quirk that could blow his legs off. But something tugged at him. He couldn't just leave. He stepped closer. A sharp rustle. Then, the figure bolted upright, all tension and instinct. Long, wet strands of hair clung to her face as she sprang into a crouched position, fists clenched, eyes glowing with a haunting turquoise shimmer that seemed to cut through the dark like knives. Hey, whoa, I'm not. I'm not here to hurt you. Victor raised both hands, palms open. His heart stammered. I was just walking by and, look, I saw you. I just. I wanted to check you were okay. The girl said nothing at first, still tense, her breathing sharp and shallow. Seriously, I'm not one of those creeps or something, Victor said. I just. You looked cold. That's all. A long pause. Then her shoulders dropped, ever so slightly. Her eyes didn't leave him, though. You scared me, she said finally, her voice low, a little hoarse. You don't just walk up to people like that. Especially not in alleys. Yeah, I know, Victor said, rubbing the back of his neck. Bad habit, I guess. I'm Victor. And, again, sorry. She hesitated, then sat back down inside the box, curling her knees to her chest. Luna. Victor stayed where he was, keeping a polite distance, but slowly slid down the wall to sit opposite her in the alley's mouth. The rain still fell between them like a curtain. You okay? He asked. Could be worse, Luna muttered. You live here. She snorted. I exist here. Not the same thing. He didn't know what to say to that. So he just nodded. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the occasional rumble of distant thunder and the persistent whisper of rain. Then Luna glanced at him. What's your quirk? Victor flinched. That was always the question. Always. She saw the reaction and furrowed her brow, but didn't press. You don't have to tell me. He looked down, fingers digging into the fabric of his soaked jeans. Quote dot dot dot. I don't have one. Silence. Then she looked at him. Really looked at him. And she didn't laugh. She didn't look disgusted or pitying. That's fine, she said, and for the first time, her voice was soft. Not everyone does. He blinked. You're the first person who's ever said that like it wasn't a big deal, he said. She shrugged. People chase power too much. Sometimes it just makes everything worse. He watched her for a moment. Her expression was guarded, but her eyes, those eerie, glowing eyes, held something else. Pain, maybe. Or memories she wasn't ready to share. You okay now? He asked again. She nodded. Then hesitated. Her lips parted as if to say something more, but she stopped herself. The rain kept falling. And neither of them moved. Cold seeped through every thread of Victor's torn clothes, and the rain had long since stopped, leaving the street glistening with puddles under the dim, gray morning light. His back ached from the stone beneath him, but he didn't move. Luna was still curled up beside him, her knees drawn to her chest beneath the damp layers of her jacket. They'd fallen asleep like that, quiet, uncertain, wrapped in shared silence and exhaustion. Her breath clouded in the chilly air as she stirred. Her turquoise eyes blinked open slowly, landing on him. You don't have anywhere to go either. Huh, she murmured, her voice hoarse. Victor gave a small, dry laugh and ran a hand through his messy, still damp hair. Is it that obvious? Luna didn't respond. She only looked at him with a kind of knowing sadness. Victor hesitated before asking, what about you? Why are you out here? Don't you have somewhere, anywhere, you can go back to? Her gaze drifted downward, and her hands tensed slightly. I do, she said softly. But if I went back, I probably wouldn't survive the night. Victor blinked, trying to gauge the weight of her words. So, you're not just some normal runaway. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she gave him a half smile, almost amused by the accusation. You the daughter of some villain or something? He asked bluntly, his tone more curious than judgmental. She laughed, quiet and short, but real. Something like that, she said, but gave no further detail. It was enough for Victor to understand. Wherever she came from, it wasn't safe. Not anymore. Maybe it never was. They both fell quiet again, shivering slightly in the early morning chill. After a moment, Luna looked at him and asked, do you ever wish you had a quirk? He stiffened. It wasn't a question he liked answering. Still, he didn't want to lie. Yeah, he said finally. I mean, of course I do. Who wouldn't? He shrugged. But it's not like you can just get one. That's not how it works. Luna furrowed her brow, hesitating. Then she reached toward him, her fingers brushing his hand. I can give you one. Victor blinked, confused. What? Before he could pull away, her grip tightened, and her eyes lit up, no longer turquoise, but a swirling, radiant spectrum of color, like a kaleidoscope of stars condensed into two burning orbs. The world fell still. Something stirred inside him. A warmth began in his chest and flowed outward, like a second heartbeat finding rhythm. His fingers tingled, then his arms. His whole body felt like it was shifting, rebalancing, rewriting itself. He gasped. Then he saw Luna's face, her expression drooping, her lips parting. A trickle of ink-dark blood slid from the corner of her mouth. Luna, he grabbed her shoulders as her body sagged slightly against him. Her eyes, once so vivid, looked glassy and red-rimmed. I'm fine, she whispered, but her voice was strained. No, you're not. I just need to rest, just for a bit. He glanced down at his hands. They still glowed faintly, not with light, but with warmth. Controlled, alive. It scared him, but not more than the sight of Luna, pale and trembling. I can help you up. No, she said sharply, her fingers wrapping around his wrist. Don't. Just, keep me warm. Her eyes closed. By midday, I'll be okay. Victor swallowed hard, drawing her closer to his side. His hands trembled slightly, unsure of what they could do, but he held them against her back, letting the strange, comforting heat pulse outward. And for the first time, he felt like he had something to offer. The street was still quiet, haunted by the dripping echoes of the rain. Victor sat with Luna pressed weakly against his side, her breathing shallow. Her skin was cold and clammy, her eyes unfocused. He looked down at her with worry hardening in his chest. Luna, he began hesitantly. Why don't you want to see a doctor? She didn't answer. Instead, her hand twitched up and pressed against the side of her head. She winced and began to tremble. Luna. She rocked slightly and murmured something under her breath. The words were too soft, too broken for him to understand. But the tone, fear. It crawled under her skin and took root. Victor clenched his jaw. She was scared. Not just of pain or weakness, but terrified, paralyzed by something he couldn't yet see. But he couldn't let her die out here. His mind scrambled for options, for places, for anyone who wouldn't ask questions. Then it hit him. There was a place. A small, rough around the edges clinic nestled along the outer border of Tokyo, where the slums kissed the city's criminal arteries. It wasn't exactly legal. It wasn't exactly safe. But it was real, and more importantly, it helped people like them. No ids. No money. Just injuries and desperate faces. The gangs left it alone, even protected it. The logic was simple. Heal the wounded, even the lawless, and everyone benefits. Victor stood, slow and steady. Leaned down and looped an arm under Luna's back. I'm getting you help. She stirred and weakly protested. No, I don't need a doctor. Then came the cough, wet, ragged, painful. She leaned forward and vomited a splash of pitch-black blood onto the cracked pavement. It sizzled faintly on the stone. Victor's stomach twisted. I'm sorry, he said, voice tight. But this isn't optional. She tried to pull away as he helped her up. You don't understand. I can't go to a clinic. I can't let anyone find out what I am. Her voice was cracked glass. Panic laced every word. And Victor understood. There was one person in all Quirk history who could give powers, and she was practically a legend, the kind of myth kids whispered about behind closed doors. If Luna was the opposite of her, if she could do the same but from the other side, she'd be hunted. Studied. Maybe worse. But still, if she died here, none of it would matter. And she was so light. He hoisted her gently but firmly into his arms. She squirmed for a moment, weakly pushing against him. You don't get it, she said, barely above a whisper. They'll want something from me. I don't want to give it again. Her voice faded, and her head lolled against his shoulder as she lost consciousness. He walked through alleys and forgotten roads, past flickering neon signs and shuttered businesses, until the streets began to turn darker, not in light, but in reputation. The clinic was small, wedged between a boarded liquor store and a silent pachinko parlor. A flickering red light above the door marked its presence. Inside, it was unexpectedly clean, worn, yes, but sterile. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and boiling rice. Several people looked up as he pushed through the door. One woman in a nurse's uniform moved toward him with immediate suspicion. "I'm sorry," she said curtly, "we're full. You'll have to." "She's dying," Victor cut in. "Please. She's unconscious. If she needs serious care, the hospital." "She can't go to a hospital." His voice was calm, but hard. "She can't. But if you help her now, I promise you, it's not something you'll regret." The nurse hesitated. "We don't take promises, kid. We take trade. You got anything? Cash? Medicine?" "I don't," he said honestly. "But she does." That made the nurse blink. He swallowed. "Not something physical. But something valuable. Very valuable. She's important. Just help her. I swear to you, it'll be worth it." The nurse eyed him, sharp and tired. "You don't smell like liquor. You're not twitching. You're either a damn good liar or one of the rare honest ones." "I've never lied in my life," Victor said quietly. That earned him a long look. Then she exhaled, muttering something under her breath. "Fine. Put her there." She pointed to a thin plastic sheeted cot. "But if she causes trouble, you carry her back out." Victor nodded and gently laid Luna down, brushing a damp strand of hair from her face. Her body was still trembling faintly. He sat down beside her, hands clenched. He'd done it. Against her will. Against his better judgment. But he hoped. God, he hoped, it was the right call. For Luna Snow Shigaraki was lifted onto a narrow examination table, her slender frame barely making a sound as two nurses gently carried her through a curtained hallway. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed as they entered a small diagnostics room filled with monitors, scanning devices, and a centrifuge humming quietly in the corner. "Let's see what we're dealing with," Nurse Amina murmured, snapping on latex gloves. Nurse Haruto produced a collection kit and prepared to draw blood. Luna lay still, eyes half closed, her breaths shallow beneath the thin hospital gown. The nurses exchanged a glance as Haruto inserted the needle into her arm. A single drop of her jet black blood filled the collection vial, and then it began to dissolve the glass from the inside. Good heavens! Amina stepped forward, voice tight. She watched, horrified, as the vial's side corroded, the black liquid dripping onto the floor. A hiss filled the room as the blood ate through the ceramic tile, carving a 3-centimeter notch into the stone before finally seeping away. Haruto gasped and dropped the syringe. It ricocheted off the counter, smashing against the floor with a sharp crack. A thin puddle of iridescent black blood pooled around the shattered glass, still bubbling and sizzling as it ate deeper into the substrate. Victor, standing outside the curtained doorway, heard the commotion and dashed into the room despite the nurse's outstretched hand. "What in the world?" he stammered, stepping over the corroded tile. Nurse Amina backed up, eyes wide. "How can someone have blood like this? It's corrosive." Haruto picked at a fragment of shattered vial. "We can't just transfuse normal human blood. We have no idea if it would even be compatible, or if it might kill her outright," Amina finished. Victor knelt beside Luna's table, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "Her blood loss isn't critical, she's stable, but if she needs a replacement..." Amina's lips pressed together. "We'd need Dr. Marvin to prepare a special substitute. He's the only one with the necessary equipment." Haruto shook her head. "He's off duty right now, didn't want to be called in for another street clinic case. He won't come unless he benefits somehow." Victor's jaw tightened. He rose, stepping between the nurses and the door. "You have to get him." Amina hesitated. "We're full, Victor." The doctor's on break, she can't die here. Victor's voice was low but urgent. Luna can do something important, something good. You know that. Her ability to give quirks, she's more valuable than any claim or paperwork you'd fill out. Haruto exchanged a glance with Amina. But what if her blood contaminates our supplies? It could be dangerous. Victor placed both hands on the edge of the table, leaning forward. You helped me before. You know I don't lie. She needs him. You must try. Silence fell. The hiss from the ruined floor tile was the only sound. Finally, Amina exhaled. All right. I'll call him. But it's on you if he refuses. Victor nodded, relief flooding him. Thank you. That's all I asked. Haruto gently covered Luna with a clean sheet. Let's hope he shows up in time. Victor stood by the doorway, heart pounding, as the nurses hurried out to track down Dr. Marvin, praying that this clandestine clinic, hidden in the city's underbelly, could still save her. For Luna was gently placed on a narrow examination table, her frail form barely shifting as two nurses carried her into a small, dimly lit room. The air was thick with the sterile scent of antiseptic and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. A small monitor blinked on one side, and a centrifuge hummed quietly in the corner. Nurse Amina nodded to her colleague, Nurse Haruto, as they prepared to take Luna's blood. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on, Amina murmured, her voice calm, though a hint of concern was evident in her tone. Luna lay still, her breathing shallow, her eyes closed in exhaustion. As Haruto carefully inserted the needle into her arm, they both flinched when Luna's blood filled the syringe, not a deep red, but black as ink. It didn't stop. The liquid spread across the glass, quickly corroding it from the inside. Amina gasped, stepping back. This isn't normal. Haruto's eyes widened as the black liquid began to drip onto the floor, sizzling and bubbling as it made contact with the tile. What the hell? She looked down, and the blood began to burn through the floor beneath them, leaving a small crater in the stone. Victor, standing just outside the room, heard the commotion. His instinct kicked in, and before anyone could stop him, he barged in, concern etched on his face. What's happening? The nurses froze, eyes wide as they scrambled back. Amina's gaze snapped to Victor. This blood, she trailed off, her voice tight. How could anyone have blood like this? Victor stepped forward, trying to make sense of the situation. His heart pounded. She's not, it's corrosive. Haruto interrupted, still eyeing the floor as the last remnants of the blood began to eat through the tile. We can't just give her normal blood. We have no idea if it would even help. Victor's jaw tightened. Her blood loss is manageable, for now, but if we need a replacement. He glanced toward Amina, his voice low but insistent. She doesn't need normal blood. She can't risk something as simple as that. Amina looked at Haruto, hesitation clear on her face. We'd need Dr. Marvin for this. He's the only one who can do anything about her blood, but he's off right now. I don't think he'll come in for something like this without a good reason. Victor frowned, frustration rising. You have to call him, now. But he's on his break. Haruto trailed off, unsure how to proceed. Victor's eyes narrowed. I know Dr. Marvin. I've worked with him before. If you get him here, he'll help. Amina exchanged a glance with Haruto, then sighed. Fine. But this is risky. He's not going to be happy about it. We need him, Victor insisted, urgency in his voice. Trust me. She can do something important with Quirks. She has the potential for something more. You can't let her die here. The nurses hesitated. Haruto bit her lip, clearly conflicted. We don't even know what she can do. How can you be so sure? Victor clenched his fists at his sides. I've seen her before. She's valuable. She's too important to just disappear. Amina and Haruto exchanged a few more silent words before Amina nodded reluctantly. All right. We'll try to get him. But you need to understand, if he doesn't come, there's nothing we can do. Victor watched them leave, the door closing softly behind them. He stood motionless for a moment, glancing at Luna, her breathing shallow, her body pale. The stakes had just gotten higher. Luna was placed back on the table as the nurses prepped for another round of tests, but the uncertainty in the air was palpable. Victor hovered just outside the room, his anxiety rising with each passing second. The moment he had feared arrived. A nurse quickly pulled back the curtain, looking at him with urgency. "We need Dr. Marvin now." Victor stepped into the room, determined. "Tell him I'll make sure he gets what he needs. But Luna's condition, she's not just another case. She's someone who can make a difference." Amina gave him a sharp look. "We still don't know what she's capable of. You have to understand, this is unlike anything we've seen before." Victor's face hardened. "I know, but she's worth it." The door to the small office clicked shut behind them as Nurse Neruda led Victor inside. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number of Dr. Marvin, the head doctor of the clinic. The speakerphone was on, allowing Victor to hear the conversation clearly as he stood beside her. "Dr. Marvin," Neruda said, her voice slightly hesitant, "we have a patient here, someone in need of your assistance." There was a brief pause on the other end before Marvin's voice came through, gruff but calm. "I don't have time for this, Neruda. It's almost Christmas. I've got my kids to look after, and I'm not getting involved in another one of these messes." Victor listened intently, his eyes flicking to the ground as he processed the situation. Luna's condition, her skin had gone from a dark lavender to a sickly, pale pink, was more than just concerning. There was something incredibly wrong with her, and understanding it was no easy task. He felt a pang of guilt and sympathy for her, for someone who carried such a heavy secret. He mentally apologized to Luna for pushing her this far, for dragging her into a situation where they had no choice but to rely on people like Dr. Marvin. Then, without warning, Victor leaned forward and interrupted the conversation. His voice was steady, though tinged with urgency. "Neruda, I need you to listen carefully. Luna is capable of doing something that I once thought impossible." Victor raised his hand, and a wave of warmth spread from his palm. A gentle, radiant heat emanated from his skin, a clear, visible pulse of energy that filled the room. The temperature seemed to rise slightly as his quirk activated, though it wasn't just warmth. There was a vibrational hum, an invisible energy surrounding him. Neruda's mouth hung open in disbelief. Her eyes widened as she stared at Victor, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. How are you doing this?" she stammered, completely taken aback. You didn't have a quirk before. How is this possible?" Victor gave a small, grim smile. "It's Luna. She can do things that no one could imagine. And I need you to help her. She's in a dangerous condition, and you're the only ones who can help her." On the other end of the phone, Dr. Marvin paused, his tone shifting as he registered what Victor was saying. "Victor." Marvin's voice was clearer now, and there was a subtle recognition in it. "Is that really you?" Victor nodded, though Marvin couldn't see him. "Yes, Marvin. It's been a long time. We've got a situation here, and I need your help. I'm asking you as an old friend." A few moments of silence passed before Dr. Marvin's voice returned, warmer now. "Well, I can't say no to you, can I? It's been what, years?" His tone softened. "You're still up to trouble, I see. But all right, I'll come. Tell me what's going on, and I'll get there in 30 minutes." He clicked off the phone, his curiosity clearly piqued. "I'll see you soon. But I need to hear everything in person." "And Victor," Marvin added, his voice hinting at a smile, "you've got some explaining to do. How did you get a quirk?" Neruda, still recovering from the shock, managed to mutter, How could you even have a quirk?" Her voice was thick with disbelief. Victor shrugged, a little resigned. "That's not the question right now. The question is, can you help Luna?" Neruda swallowed hard and nodded. "Right. Let's just wait for Marvin." Victor stepped back, his mind racing. He knew this was their best shot. Marvin was the best doctor he could get under these circumstances, and despite everything, Victor trusted him. But as he glanced at Luna, lying still on the bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Victor stepped out into the chill of early morning, the sky awash of pale gold as the sun crested the horizon. It had been exactly 30 minutes since he'd called for Dr. Marvin. He straightened his jacket and turned to see his old school friend striding up the street, still in a rumpled lab coat, hair disheveled from sleep. "Marvin," Victor greeted, offering a hand. "Thanks for coming." Marvin shook it firmly, eyes narrowing as he took in Victor's still warm palm. "You've changed," he said, half amused. "Show me this trick of yours." Victor held out his hand. A soft wave of heat pulsed outward, raising the temperature of the air around them by a few degrees. Marvin's breath caught, but he only grinned. "Impressive. Not what I expected at 7 a.m., Victor laughed, relief evident. "Please, promise me you won't tell anyone about this. She can't afford attention right now." Marvin nodded solemnly. "Your secret's safe. Now, tell me what I'm walking into." "It's Luna," Victor said quietly. "Last time she used her power, she collapsed. She's terrified of doctors, bad experiences, I think. I didn't want any surprises." Marvin's expression softened. "Understood. Lead the way." They returned to the clinic, where Luna still lay on the examination table. Marvin leaned in, studying her pallid face, her chest rising too slowly. Instinctively, he placed a hand on her arm. A faint shimmer of energy passed beneath his fingertips, his own quirk activating. He called it chemical resonance, the ability to scan and manipulate biochemicals he could map in his mind. He concentrated, trying to read her physiology. He felt only static resistance. Her biology was something he had never encountered, a foreign language. Frowning, Marvin retrieved a reinforced metal syringe, designed for subjects with denser tissue, and carefully drew a small vial of her blood. The jet-black liquid pooled safely inside the steel chamber, refusing to corrode it. Even under his touch, it remained contained. He wheeled over a reinforced microscope and peered into the specimen. His breath hitched. Where every DNA strand he'd ever seen twisted in a familiar double helix, Luna's 3 strands intertwined in a perfect triple helix. Each strand carried different markers, 3 distinct quirk signatures encoded within a single genome. 3 quirks, in one person. Marvin's mind raced. The only force that could theoretically splice that many abilities belonged to all for one. But that was a man, long thought gone. And this was a teenage girl with violet skin. It didn't add up. Still, the inference was unavoidable. Victor's newfound ability must have come from her. Yet he hadn't mentioned that. Marvin's eyes narrowed as he weighed possibilities. This is impossible, and yet, here it is. He set the slide down gently. His curiosity burned brighter than any fear. "Victor, I need to run more tests. But I promise, I'll do everything I can to help her survive." Victor exhaled, gratitude flooding him. The sun was fully up now, and somewhere in its weak glow he found hope. By midday, Luna's condition had at last been brought under control. Under Dr. Marvin's careful supervision and the nurse's watchful eyes, her skin gradually returned to its deep, dark violet hue, and her snow-white hair began to glow with an almost ethereal brightness. Though she remained unconscious, her vital signs stabilized, her heart steady, her breathing regular. Marvin rubbed his tired eyes. "I still can't wrap my head around what I've just seen," he murmured, stepping outside with Victor into the clinic's small courtyard. The warm air carried the distant hum of traffic and the faint tang of engine exhaust. Victor exhaled, leaning against the brick wall. "She's safe, for now." Marvin nodded, glancing back at the curtained windows behind which Luna lay. "If I didn't know better, I'd swear she was an alien. Her genetics, it's unlike anything human." Victor frowned. "Tell me more about what you found." Marvin ran a hand through his rumpled hair. "Her DNA, it's a triple helix. 3 intertwining strands instead of 2. That means she stores roughly 50% more genetic information than any normal human. I've never seen anything so complex." Victor crossed his arms. 3 strands, that explains why you had such a hard time reading her quirk. Marvin's brow furrowed. Exactly. I can decode a standard double helix in minutes, predict quirks, even manipulate minor chemical signals. But a 3rd strand makes it exponentially more complicated. I can't be certain, but I'm convinced she possesses 3 separate quirks. Victor's eyes widened. 3 quirks, but she's been too weak to use even one properly. Marvin nodded slowly. Which suggests she can't self-grant or amplify them, otherwise she wouldn't have collapsed. Her body is strong, physically stronger than a peak human, even without overt quirk activation, but her frame isn't built to wield all 3 independently yet. He inhaled the midday air, the faint scent of gasoline and ozone drifting by. Her blood, too, highly toxic on a purely physiological level. Even without quirk effects, it could kill a normal person with a single drop. Victor looked away, troubled. People would call that monstrous. Marvin gave a rueful smile. Monstrous, perhaps, but I've seen enough in my career to know mutation can go places we never imagined. He hesitated, then spoke in a low voice. There was a figure, legendary, all but mythical, who could steal and bestow quirks. All for one. Supposedly born at the dawn of the quirk era. They say he was a man. Victor stiffened. Marvin continued. Even if the stories are true, he'd have to be over 200 years old to be involved directly. I find that improbable. But genetics, similarities, both can grant abilities. The odds of that being mere coincidence are vanishingly small. Victor's jaw tightened. So you think there might be a family connection? Marvin shrugged. I can't say for sure, but the parallels are too striking to ignore. If she's related to, or even engineered using, elements of that original wielder, it would explain the triple helix, something beyond normal human science. He looked across the courtyard, his expression resolute. Whatever the truth, she needs our help. And as long as she's unconscious, we have time to learn. Let's hope we can keep it that way. Victor nodded. Thank you, Marvin, for everything. Marvin gave a small, tired smile. Don't thank me yet. We've got a long road ahead. The 2 old friends stood in silence as the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the clinic's courtyard, readying themselves for whatever came next. Nurse Neruda appeared at the door, her expression urgent. Dr. Marvin, Victor, follow me, please, you'll want to see this. Victor and Marvin exchanged a glance and stepped through the curtained doorway. Neruda led them to a desktop computer against the far wall and tapped a few keys. The screen lit up with a medical record. Name, Luna Snow. Parentage, daughter of Aaron Snow, mother unknown. Status, declared missing after a villain attack, presumed dead in Egypt. Marvin leaned forward, brow furrowed. Missing in Egypt, declared dead, how? Victor's heart skipped. That can't be right. She's right here. Ruta pointed at the file's origin field. This record came through our international network. It's registered under Interpol and World Hero Association data, her official identity in Egypt. Marvin ran a hand over his face. So she was declared dead overseas, then somehow transported here, and every time she uses her power she nearly dies. How did she survive long enough to get on a plane? Victor shook his head. I don't know. She collapsed so fort after each activation. She couldn't walk by herself, let alone travel continents. Neruda glanced between them. We've never seen a quirk that lets someone relocate like that, especially someone who collapses from its use. Marvin's eyes were cold and curious. This raises more questions than answers. If she's officially missing in Egypt and our records link her to Aaron Snow, someone must have smuggled her out before the declaration. Victor swallowed. Or she might have teleported, but she's never shown that kind of power. Neruda nodded slowly. We need to reconcile these records. And quickly, because whatever brought her here isn't over. They stood in stunned silence, the mystery of Luna Snow deepening as the afternoon light slanted through the clinic window. Dr. Marvin turned to Nurse Neruda, voice low and urgent. You must not mention any of this to anyone, under no circumstances. Neruda swallowed. Yes, doctor. Marvin continued, eyes narrowed as he glanced at Victor. We suspect she possesses 3 distinct quirks. None of them are even remotely related to probability manipulation like her father's. Something is fundamentally off about her physiology. Victor nodded, heart heavy. She must have endured a terrible childhood to be this terrified of doctors, he thought. How alone she must have felt. Father gone, mother unknown. Marvin held up a hand. Until she regains consciousness, we leave as few traces as possible. No unnecessary attention on this clinic. They were silent for a moment, until a sudden clatter erupted from the nearby operating room. A tray of instruments tumbled to the floor. Marvin and Neruda exchanged alarmed looks. That sounded like Luna's room, Victor said, rushing toward the door. Inside the OR, Luna Snow was pressed against the far wall, knees tucked under her chin. She trembled violently, eyes wide and unfocused, murmuring, I don't want to die, please, leave me alone. She didn't register their presence. Tears streaked her pale violet cheeks as she shook her head, rocking back and forth. Nurse Neruda gasped. She's in full panic. Victor stepped forward gently. Luna, it's me, Victor. We're not here to hurt you. But Luna's gaze darted around, seeing only shadows. No, no more doctors, no more needles. Marvin raised a hand, concern etched on his face. Victor, you need to get out of here, now. Victor shot him a look. Her lab gown, it's triggering her attack. We need to let her calm down. Neruda nodded, voice trembling. She's associating us with the lab, if we stay in these uniforms. Victor turned to them both, resolve in his eyes. Go. Change into regular clothes. I'll stay with her. Harried and terrified, Neruda and Marvin backed out of the OR. Victor hurried after them, closing the door softly behind him. Moments later, he returned in plain attire and stepped inside, heart pounding. Luna pressed herself tighter against the wall, but at least she no longer recognized a threat on his approach. Victor sat on the floor beside her, voice calm and soft. You're safe, Luna. I'm right here. Her eyes fluttered, caught between fear and exhaustion, as the door quietly clicked shut behind him. 10 Victor knelt beside Luna, voice low and soothing. Hey, it's okay. You're not there anymore. You're safe. Luna kept trembling, arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her breathing was shallow, erratic. Breathe with me, Victor said, gently. In and out. Look around, Luna. Do you see? This isn't that place. She slowly opened her eyes wider, scanning the room. Her gaze darted to the walls, the ceiling, then the door. None of it matched the nightmare burned into her memory. It's not the lab, she whispered, uncertain. No, this is a clinic. In Japan. Far from wherever you were. She stared at him, lips quivering. I want to go outside. Please, I can't stay here. Of course, Victor said softly, helping her to her feet. She leaned heavily against him, legs unsteady. Dr. Marvin and the 2 nurses stood just outside the room. As Luna emerged, her eyes squinted against the daylight. A breeze touched her face. She inhaled deeply, a shudder passing through her, but the panic began to fade. Neruda stepped forward. Luna, please, you should rest. You're still weak. Luna shook her head firmly. No, I'm not going back inside. I have my reasons. Dr. Marvin raised a brow, concerned. Victor gently placed a hand on Luna's shoulder. Let me speak with her for a moment. He led her a few steps aside. Luna, he said quietly, I had to tell them. I didn't name your quirk, but I had to say something so someone would take care of you. It was serious. Your heart almost stopped, twice. Her breath caught. Why you told them? I had no choice, Victor admitted. And I told Marvin about one of them. Just one. Her eyes widened in horror. They know that I have 3. Victor saw the shift in her posture. She was about to run. He stepped closer and whispered, Luna, no one's going to hurt you. No one's going to force anything. You don't have to give anyone anything. No more quirks, I promise. She blinked, slowly calming again. I just have a few questions, Victor said. And my old friend, Marvin, he'd like to talk with you too. Marvin and the nurses stood back, watching. Victor turned to them. Thank you. We'll take it from here. The nurses nodded and returned to the clinic. Luna, still visibly shaken, walked with Victor and Marvin to a quiet spot beneath a tree, away from any windows or ears. After a long silence, she finally spoke. Her voice was faint, heavy. I'm scared of doctors, because of my parents. They weren't good people. Victor and Marvin exchanged a glance, trained, knowing. Luna, Marvin said gently, did they experiment on you? She flinched but nodded. My body was never mine. I don't want to go back to that. I can't. Neither man said anything. There was only compassion in their eyes. I know you want to ask about my quirks, she said softly, but you don't have to. I'll tell you anyway. She took a deep breath. It's an accumulation type quirk. That's all. I overused it the day before. That's why I collapsed. I pushed past my limit. Marvin nodded slowly. Thank you for trusting us. And for a moment, under the quiet sway of the trees, Luna Snow didn't feel like a test subject anymore. The days blurred into weeks, first quiet, then steady, like the rhythm of a heartbeat slowly returning to life. At first, Luna Snow remained distant. She barely spoke unless prompted. But she listened. She watched. And little by little, she began to trust. Victor and Marvin stayed by her side. They didn't push. They didn't pry. They simply were there, offering safety, offering presence. The two men, so different in background but united in conviction, recognized exactly what Luna represented. A girl with the power to grant quirks. A walking singularity. Society wasn't ready for someone like her. Not yet. And they both knew it. Marvin understood the political and scientific implications. He didn't deny his curiosity, his desire to understand. But deeper than that was his human decency. No matter what knowledge Luna held in her genes, no matter what power she could pass on, he would never accept what had been done to her. She was not a tool. Not a subject. She was a person. Victor, on the other hand, had no need for intellectual justification. His loyalty was simple, honest, and unwavering. Luna had saved his life. And he would spend his days repaying that kindness in full. With their help, Luna was given shelter. A safe place, small, quiet, tucked away in the hills outside the city. It wasn't much, but it was hers. For the first time in her life, she had a home. She didn't talk much, but she ate. A lot. And she slept, deep, dreamless sleep that seemed to help her body more than any doctor could. Daily life was something she had to learn. Luna moved through the world with the mimicry of a normal girl, yet it was clear how foreign everything still was to her. She didn't know how a TV worked. A smartphone puzzled her. The microwave was a marvel, and instant noodles might as well have been magic. When she tried to cook, she would often forget basic steps, like boiling water. That alone revealed the truth. Luna Snow had never been taught how to live. Only how to serve. In those early weeks, in hushed conversations late at night, she began to tell her story. Not all of it. Just pieces. She spoke of the lab, of white rooms and cold lights. Of strangers in masks. Of the forced quirk transfers. She didn't describe the methods. She didn't say how they made her do it. Only that she had no choice. What stunned Marvin and Victor most wasn't the content of her words, but the detachment in her voice. And then she said it. Calm. Unapologetic. I'm glad my parents are dead. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. If I'd had the chance, she added softly, I would have killed them myself. There was no anger in her tone. Just truth. But even so, her body betrayed her. Whenever she mentioned her parents, she shook. Her fingers trembled. Her breath quickened. And when her thoughts circled back to the lab, her eyes filled with tears. She cried, but she kept speaking. Victor would sit beside her. Marvin would listen with a stillness that only came from deep compassion. No one asked for more than she offered. And in time, 3.5 months, Luna Snow stood on her own again. She was not healed, but she was stronger. One evening, with stars overhead and the wind brushing through the tall grass around their home, Luna finally said, "I think, I want to use my quirk again." Victor turned to her, eyebrows raised. "Not for them," she added quickly. "Not for anyone like them." She looked toward the city in the distance, the lights flickering like fireflies. "For the ones who don't have powers. The ones like you. So maybe they won't have to suffer like you did." Victor's throat tightened. He had no words, only gratitude. And from that moment forward, Luna Snow began to reclaim her power, on her terms. And that wraps up today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, it helps more than you know. Also, feel free to share this channel with your friends, so they can join us on this journey too. If you click right here on the left side of the screen, you'll be taken to the latest video I uploaded. And over here on the right, you'll find the playlist for this entire story so you can dive even deeper into the world we've created. Thanks again for watching, and if you want to hear more of this tale, you know what to do: like, subscribe, and spread the word. Until next time, take care and see you soon.